Hey everybody, before we go into our episode, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update and also some word of appreciation. Really am grateful for all the loves and support that we have been getting. Been having the chance to meet a lot of people that can also come on the podcast and really talk on their insight to how they became successful, building relationships, love, understanding, patience. There's so many things we could talk about, and I'm truly excited to share that with you guys. And if you guys haven't subscribed, you should subscribe to whatever podcast platform that you're on. And man, it's really gonna be one hell of a ride, because one thing's for sure, we also created our communication card game called Enough Said. Perfect icebreaker questions so you can really get to know someone the right way. When you ask interesting questions, you'll find the person interesting. I reassure you, guys that actually have gotten it has given me the feedback, and really you guys are loving it. And there's a time that I was able to experience it amongst people that didn't even know each other, and we're all in group setting and we're all having a great time. So I'm just so grateful that it's actually working and you guys love it. I can't wait for this to go a lot more farther than wherever it can be, because communication is important. So let's go into our episode for today. Peace. Welcome everybody to the Rally Cry podcast. My name is Angel.
And my name is Tyler.
And you guys are here because you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to move from the past, and you want to live in this moment. And in this moment, we got a guest. Yes, I said it. But before I introduce you to this guest, I want to make sure that you guys follow us on Instagram at The Rally Cries, and also follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Let us know. Let us leave a review. Let us know if there's something that we haven't talked about, or maybe there's something that we haven't talked about enough. And so today, I really want to say that I appreciate you being here. And, with our conversation that we had, we were talking about mental health and all the importances about mental health, and just to get to know you a little bit more as well as the audience. So yeah, everybody, welcome Noah Witt. Yes.
Noah!
Woo!
Thank you.
No, isn't Noah I think it's a Bible name too, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
But I guess the story was that my parents didn't know what they were going to name me, but I looked like a little old man as a baby. So
Really?
they called me
Cool.
Noah. Yeah.
They called you so they think Noah is an old man's name?
I guess he was old in the Bible.
Oh, yeah,
I
because
looked like that.
if you think about it, the reference is Noah's Ark. So he's the
Yeah.
one that got all the animals and everybody off the island and got them in the boat.
Yeah.
Look at that. I'm already learning. That's crazy.
Uh,
I want to start by, introducing yourself, and as far as like letting the people know, what is it that you do, and why is it important to you?
So I am a certified recovery coach. I work at Mercy Medical Center in Springfield,
Mm.
Springfield, Mass. I am. It's important to me because I am a person in recovery. And there's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, and it's like to freely give back, or to give back that was so freely given to me. So giving back is important to me. And honestly, I've just always been someone like, I feel the need to care for people, to give, and that's what I do. I'm a recovery coach.
Nice. Yeah, and when you say that too, it reminds me that there was a quote that says that you are more than capable to teach the people you once were.
Oh, wow.
And hearing that is kind of just saying, where it's like, when I was in a certain position, I'm able to, understand in that positioning, and able to, hey, I was once here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to let you know this is not where you want to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because a lot of people could relate to that, and I think that's important. And when it comes to recovery, is there a specific recovery that you do?
Well, so the recovery is like a broad term, and as I understand it, and as it applies to me, recovery means that I am not actively using that which I was addicted to, right?
Right.
So, but a lot of people kind of think recovery means specifically 12-step programs like AA or NA. Those are like huge, and those are worldwide organizations, and millions of people find health and happiness through them. But recovery itself, as I understand it, is just like I said, just being free from active use of that which I was
Right, right. I think when we hear recovery, right, we could think of so many ways that we could recover from things. I think also being the month of love, I
addicted.
think that a lot of us are probably even recovering from broken relationships, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I know recovery can be just as similar to any recovery of anything, right?
Yep.
And we could be addicted to either if it's a substance or even the people that we're with, right?
1000%.
It is because our brain or it gives the same chemical release,
Yep.
right? The feeling of having something and then not having it anymore, and then the the need of needing it more
That's
of
right.
it.
That's right.
Mhm.
And so when you think about love and recovery and breakups and stuff like that, do you think that has a similar connotation?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think you can apply a lot of the things that they teach in like 12-step meetings, or apply a lot of the philosophies behind recovery
Mm.
to breakups, to relationships, cycles, right? Like, so I'm definitely someone who needed to break my own cycles of like uh, bad relationships, or how I felt within relationships, giving power away, that kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely think recovery can apply to relationships and love and all that.
Yeah.
I
Um
love that as you mentioned that, because now, like, at least when it comes to recovery, like, would you say like there's a certain approach, because the 12 step or maybe AA meeting isn't something that everybody wants to do, especially with
That's right.
the
Yep.
stigma that's around it. So what kind of
Hmm.
approach would you say you have when addressing someone's addiction, or maybe how you're going to go about a certain process, because everybody's different?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me at the hospital in particular, I what's important for me to do is to meet people where they're at, right? So I don't come in with an agenda. I don't come in with a game plan for that person, because I haven't met them. I don't know them. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know why they're coming from. That's the important thing, is the why. So when I go in, and if I'm, say, the first contact I have with someone, I try to be as open as I can and meet the people where they're at.
And I think that's
Mm,
important too. I think meeting them where they're at is who they became,
Yeah.
and also understanding of where's that start? Where did that start from? I think a lot of times where we're going into that healing process, right, aka recovery, um, we kind of just worry about what's more recent of a problem.
That's right.
And I think it's important to understand that there is other problems that were probably never addressed that may trigger someone in having a
Absolutely.
longer process of having a recovery, right? If it's getting away from a substance or if it's getting away from someone, and not necessarily getting away, but in the sense to kind of like take a break,
Take a
right?
break. Sure. Yeah.
Because I think there's things that trigger them, there's reasons why they are in certain positions, and that needs to be understandable. Um, and I think, what would you say is one of the steps that someone has to do in order to recover from anything?
So, acceptance is definitely the biggest thing. Accepting that I am an addict, right? Or that you are an addict, or that you don't even have to identify as an addict, but that you are addicted to something right now, and accepting that is, I think, one of the only like needs to happen steps, right? Because if you don't accept it, you're not going to work on it with like full intent and full examine every scrape every out. If we're not accepting, then we might kind of skip some things.
Right. Have you ever had like um patients that you work with where that process of realization, self actualization, took a little longer of a
Oh, for
process?
sure.
And,
Yeah,
and how would you approach something like that? Because I think a lot of times we as people have a hard time of admitting certain things that
absolutely.
we are doing bad habit of. So what would you say is a process that will make someone realize it more? Is it being
Um,
patient?
yeah, definitely. Patience is huge. And I think continuity, and commitment, a bunch of C words. Those are important too, right? Like letting people know that I'm consistent, that they don't have to get it right now. Actually, I find myself saying that a lot. Like, you don't have to get it all right now. Like right now, let's just talk. Let's just be here. So for the people that are taking longer to sort of come to acceptance, actually there's been a lot of people that I'll literally just go sit with them in the room. There's a couple of people that are like, I don't want to talk. I feel terrible right now. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals, or I've really like ruined relationships in my life, but I don't want to be alone. Like, would you mind just sitting? And so I'll do that, right? So commitment and consistency. I think that those things help people like feel comfortable enough to accept what they're going through.
Right. Taking their time and letting them as they are then
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
One thing that struck my mind is, a lot of times I've heard stories where addictions to substance can really break down
Oh,
families,
yeah.
relationships, as you mentioned. And my question would be, do you think that relationships are broken and then they get to addicted to something, or do you think most of the times they get addicted to something and it breaks relationships?
Honestly, not even like avoiding an answer. I think it's probably 100% and 100%, right? Or 50-50. It could happen either way, and it does happen either way. I- yeah, using. Sometimes I'll say like using a substance is often like a symptom, like you're saying, of a problem that's deeper inside, right?
Right.
Um, but using things and all that comes with it, the lying, the stealing, the spending, the dangers to your health, the reckless sort of behavior breaks down trust in relationships, be it romantic relationships, familiar relationships, your relationship with yourself. Um, and then sometimes, if we are going through a breakup, yeah, we'll look to soothe that, to find a salve for that, and then sometimes that's when substances. I'll tell you, a lot of people I meet, when I first meet them, a lot of people are embarrassed or ashamed, so they'll give a reason. They'll be like, "Oh, I was doing great, but then my mother died a few months ago, or my girl left me," and it's like, sure, that absolutely might have triggered something, but not always. And we don't always need to have a reason. Sometimes we are just an addict, or sometimes there's things we're supposed to be learning, you know? Um, so I went way off course there,
No,
but I don't
no,
know if I
it's
answered
perfect.
your question. Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. I think the point is just to ask a question, and then off of that, there's so many things that go into it.
Yeah.
I
You
actually
gonna say
wanted,
time? Yeah.
I wanted to double down on Angel's question and then at least what Noah was saying, because he mentioned being alone. And when it comes to addiction and things of that nature, it does ruin relationships. So I do like Angel's question because it could be either way how the process starts. Now, at least when it comes to your clients, like how often are these people coming to you? Like, are they always alone, or do they actually have support where people visit them, or maybe they do want them to get better?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, is there like a strong difference between like whether being alone and actually having support?
So because I work at a hospital, right? Most people that I've met are there sort of at the end of the road, right? Like either something bad's happened. They've either overdosed or they have like organ failure. So a lot of the people that I meet with are really at the end. So relationships have been broken down. But to answer your question, I would say it's probably 75% are alone or estranged, or their families just doesn't know what to do. They don't even want to be a part of it anymore. And then that 25% where like I'll go in and someone's mother is in the room, or their brother or their girlfriend or wife. When I do see that, I try to let those people know that what they're doing by being supportive, by being there, is very uncommon. right? And that they're maybe of that 25%. And I try to encourage that support as much as possible. In my experience, people that have a lot of support around them tend to be more motivated and tend to do better.
You know
It's
that.
not impossible, but it seems to follow that pattern. Yeah.
Yeah, because like that basically goes back to like an experiment that me and Angel talked about on the show, and it
Mm-hmm.
was about the rat experiment. And if you
Mm,
put a rat in a cage and there's cocaine, the rat is gonna eventually consume that cocaine and become addicted and die of
yeah,
failure, right? But
right,
then if you
right.
put a couple of rats in there and then you put the cocaine, they start avoiding it because they have each other. So
Oh
because of
wow.
this
Yeah.
unity, they end up
Uh-huh.
creating a town, and then you put more rats there. Now they got this whole little function where they're
That's
not even
awesome.
acknowledging the existence of the cocaine.
Right.
So that's
That's
why I was
incredible.
asking, because it
Yeah.
really just goes to show, like, when we're around people,
Mhm.
motivation,
Yeah.
familiarity, consistency, trust, all these things come into the matter. So all those questions of doubt and unease, it kind of leaves the matter, and it makes you forget, like, does adversity even exist really when you're on that path of downfalls?
Yeah. That's incredible. It's great. It's a great point. Yeah. Like I don't remember how it goes, but in the many we are strong, Like
Mm.
it can be hard to lift 1,000,000 pounds by yourself, but if you have 1,000,000 people, it's a pound apiece. So
Yeah, that's true. It makes me and it's funny how I ran into this quote, but is the soap, was it um
Dr. Bronner? I know.
Dr. Bronner soap?
There
Yeah,
you go.
he has a quote on there. Like he has a whole bunch of there's a lot of quotes on there and
uh,
like just like I guess philosophy.
sure.
But one of the things they said on there was like, "For we are one or none at all,"
Uh,
and that's so powerful because
Beautiful.
we are all responsible for our own individual actions, but we are also an influence to other people's actions.
Yeah, and with the rat in the cage thing, that's another thing. Being an example for
Yep.
having examples, having inspiration, feeling inspired by seeing others around us. It's a great point.
Yeah.
That's super helpful as well.
Yeah, and then from what Tyler was saying, having trust and a sense of belonging and all those things because of the people that you're around is important because when we don't have that, we kind of don't know where to go, right?
Yeah,
We don't know who to talk to, and we feel alone, and I think that can be uh a right, to
mhm,
someone's either addiction towards something, right? Because I strongly think that addiction it a lot of times it's towards substance abuse, right? And it's something that we address a lot of times in this society, but I think we don't also address it by how we are addicted to people,
agreed. Yeah,
and the certain behaviors that they carry or certain behaviors that we do to ourselves. We could be addicted to those things too, right? I could
thousand
be
percent.
addicted to smoking, right? That's one thing, that's the substance, right? But I could be addicted to playing games. I could be addicted to wearing a certain clothing that I don't want to get rid of, right? Because of what value it gives for me, right? How it makes me feel. And all those other, I could be addicted to going to the gym. I could be addicted to work to to a point it ruins relationships
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I don't prioritize everything. And as many times as me and Tyler say, we always try to say to people that you want to have a sense of balance of everything. Because if you don't, you're gonna lose something to gain another.
Wow, it's great. It's a great way to put it. It's a
Yeah.
great way to put it. In the literature for AA, they say you're you've crossed the line when your life has become unmanageable. Like that's how they phrase it, right? So
Mm,
if using a substance has made an aspect of your life unmanageable, then you're problem, right?
mm.
And I think it's more nuanced than that, but that's a good jumping off point. Like if this is messing with an aspect of your life, you might want to look at it.
Right. And when you say nuance, what do you mean?
Um, well, exactly like you're saying, like addiction to substances is very obvious, right? There's a medical aspect, it's biological, it's chemical. We can treat it with other substances, with other like good drugs. Um, but that's we can treat symptoms of addiction again, but addiction itself is nuanced. It comes from way back. It could be prior lives, right? Like intergenerational trauma, like we were talking about. To really get to the heart of why you do what you do could take you really far back, and it's subtle. Uh, you gotta really like turn the lights on in order to see what's inside.
Right. No, it's true.
I love that because, with turning the lights on to see what's around you, that takes control and you having
Yeah,
the willingness to do it. So
yeah,
like
willingness. Yeah,
when it comes to the clients, like would you say like there's some kind of activities that reminds them of how to control the things that are within their control versus like what's out of their control? Because
yeah,
clients, they
definitely.
if they're using the substance, they don't have control of certain things in their life, and that's why they put it towards other things.
Yeah, you got. Let me just say, you're both so insightful and so like self educated. I don't mean like you're not classically educated. I mean, you guys are so obviously listening to your insights and listening to yourselves and each other. You're so educated, self like of the self.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
really
you.
great. Yeah, man,
I
this is great.
appreciate
um, and yes, there are practices, if you will, that like people can do to help them break cycles and break habits and form good habits.
it.
Um, those kind of things um, sort of aren't my lane at the hospital. I make suggestions, of course, but as far as like real like therapeutic practices and therapeutic work, like you guys were speaking with Maria, that's not something that I'm educated in, and I wouldn't want to give someone advice or have them practice something that I that I don't know is correct for them and maybe make things worse.
Mhm,
To answer your question, yes, there are lots of things that people can do to sort of rewire their addictive behaviors.
mhm.
But that's not. It's just sort of outside of my role at the hospital.
Got it.
Mm,
Yeah, that's
okay.
fair.
Yeah.
Like, would you,
Um,
so what would you say, like, if anything, right, out of your practices, what would you say has been the most unorthodox type of style that somebody would learn to restructure the way they think, and so that way they could get off that bad habit?
Yeah. Man, I have to think about that one. Most unorthodox. I'll tell you what. If you don't mind asking me that again, I got to think about that one for a
I
minute.
got you.
yeah,
Okay.
and that's okay because I
Yeah.
actually learned that as our modern society is growing, back in like 1800s around there, give or take, that's when psychology was first being introduced,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
And now in the 2020s, we probably have over 500 practices and systems
Yeah.
that works for
Right.
somebody, right?
Absolutely.
And this goes for psychologically, because addiction is a psychological thing, right? It's all in the mind, and it's all in the mind thinking that we need something in order to operate up the way that we should. And it's also, I wanted to say that, um, I think when it comes to addiction, you could correct me. It's kind of like taking out a habit and replacing it for a new one.
Yeah. I get nervous about that
Mm,
because, as we were saying earlier, you can become addicted to anything, like going to the gym, right? Like something that might have started out as healthy, going for a walk, running, meditating, whatever. But if you're not addressing why you have these addictive tendencies, anything could be you could become addicted to. So rather than taking something out and replacing it with something else, for me, it's been important to take those things out, but simultaneously be working on things to sort of fill in, but not replace, you know? Um, so instead of like taking something out and replacing it with something, I try to take things out and then go on a different path and fill in as I'm going on that path.
and I love that you say that because I think that's true, right? You can't replace something, right, that you don't know that needs to be replaced, right?
Right. Yep.
So of course you need to have that sense of awareness, like, okay,
Yeah.
this is bad for me. Let me find something new. but it's kind of like still asking yourself that question, right? Why is this something that I feel like I need? Regardless if I want to, let's say, stop smoking, right? As simple as that example is, and I want to start going to the gym more, it's like, okay, but why do I want to do that? What does that do
Right.
for me?
Motivation.
What
Yeah.
does that look like
What
for
does
me?
that look like? Yeah.
Right. And one thing Madi was saying was radical acceptance, right?
Mhm.
Radically accept that the fact that, this is what it is.
She's the best.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's the best. Yeah.
But this is just what it is. I need to accept for what it is. I
Mhm.
know what it takes for me to get where I would like to be, right? And I think that self-affirmation is kind of another part of the process of getting rid of something that is a bad behavior.
Definitely, man. You and I were talking a little bit before this, like, self-esteem and confidence. Forget how you put it, but like there were two types: inner and outer confidence.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and definitely affirmations. Uh, with people who are addicted, for myself and for the people that I work with, there's a lot of shame. There are definitely people that I'll walk into their room. Actually, this happened just the other day, and they'll be like, "Yeah, look, I don't want to hear it. I'm not ready to stop. I don't want to stop. Get out."
Wow.
Oh, it happens a
That's
lot.
direct.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We actually sort of appreciate it when people are that honest, and it doesn't mean that that's the end of the road. Like, I'll still come back and drive them nuts and say, "Hey, just want to check in, see if you want to maybe try something new." But with the shame that comes with a lot of people, confidence is a huge issue. Huge
Mm.
issue.
That's interesting, because shame, I believe, comes from a sense of inner doubt. It almost feels like when you shame yourself for something, it's kind of saying that I'm the problem rather
Wow,
than the
man,
other way around. I think
that's awesome.
when it's like it's almost like I forgot there's shame and guilt, and the difference between guilty is that I did something wrong. With shame is that I am wrong.
Damn, man, that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. What an insightful thing to say. That's incredible, man.
Thank you, thank you. So
Well done, man. Well, bravo. That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
honestly, just bringing that up, it makes me think that people are feeling shameful for themselves, and they feel shameful for doing certain things they're addicted to. The bigger problem is that they feel like they're being ridiculed for who they actually are.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And a lot of times they are.
Right.
A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, addiction's a choice." Right. And like they're choosing to do this to themselves. Why are we putting in so many resources when all they have to do is stop? All they have to do is make a decision. I choose every day not to be an addict. And it's unfortunately that's not how it works, right? And,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, yes, addiction, there's a huge psychological component, but there's also a biological component, right? Because our bodies do at some point, you can cross that line of being mentally addicted to something. And if you're using a substance, being physically, now your body is addicted. And a lot of times, addicts towards the end, they mentally don't want to be there anymore, but they can't, their body can't stop. They cross that line to where the body is telling them, no, you're going to do this. Like, yeah, there's work with a lot of people who will say like, I can't believe that I'm doing it. Like I know not to go to the package store. Like I know, but man, my car just goes there, and I know what they're saying. I get what they're saying. And, yeah, yeah, um, it's a tough thing. It's a nuanced thing.
Like
Yeah, and I
and
think is
Angel,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I really did appreciate like how you brought that up because it reminds me of like recently, like at least with work, like I felt shame because I didn't I haven't gotten a customer like in a certain time frame, and seeing that
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
other people around me that I started work with, they got a customer. Now it's like it's lighting the fire in me, and it's still keeping me competitive. And also in my head, I'm like, dang, so like how long is it going to take for me to get a customer? The market's hard right now. So it's like,
yeah,
what is it going to take for me to have that moment so then I could get that breath of relief, like where I
yeah.
finally did it? Because one of the hardest things is to get a first customer. So,
Mhm.
and then another thing I wanted to double down on was that, biologically, I think that there's some things that we also get from our parents, especially like how we're raised. So
Definitely,
we become a
definitely.
bit too familiar with shame because of like,
Wow,
some families come from different things
wow.
where, especially
Yeah,
being
yeah,
Hispanic,
yeah.
we could get shamed on for doing certain things, and then it's like everybody in the family knows. So now you're
Uh,
embarrassed because everybody
yeah,
knows. So it's not like it's private in the home. Everybody
yeah.
in different homes know this, and then when it comes to family family meetings, or maybe even a family celebration like for Christmas, it's kind of
Sure.
awkward because people know your business, and then it's like there's no sense of privacy either.
Yeah, that's a great point. And man, you guys are like so insightful. And
Thank you, though.
yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
Thank you,
the
thank
shame
you.
being, yeah, absolutely. The shame, feeling guilty about something, like, oh, I did something, and feeling shame, I am something.
Right.
That's a great distinction. And you know, the in Springfield, there's a large Latin community, and the company that I work for, Gandara, started out as a strictly for the Latino community. They're not that anymore, but so I say that to say I've learned a lot about the community, and I do see that particularly with men, there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt if you feel like you have to ask for help. And a
Mm.
lot of
Hmm.
Latin men seem to really struggle with that. And I don't know if that's because that was what was in the home. It seems like that's what maybe be the case, you know. But changing that culture is something that the team that I work with, we're really working on that.
Mm.
Side note, I
That's
worked for
interesting.
Gandara in Springfield. Just I got to work there a little bit, and you'd be
Yep.
surprised. Like some of the teenagers that I was able to see and everything, like that's still a thing even now. I mean, me and Angel are 25,
Yeah,
so that culture
yeah,
is still
uh-huh,
like being idolized to an extent where even now
uh-huh,
kids and that are going to be a part of the new generation are still facing that. But now there's
yeah.
the twist with social media. So now there's even
Oh
more shame
man,
Hmm.
that
you're
they
not
have to deal
kidding.
with. So now you got it in school, you got it on social media, and you got it at home. So it's like, where exactly do you find space where like you don't feel shame,
Where's
that you don't
right,
feel
right.
pressure, you don't feel embarrassment, and it's
Mm.
everywhere. So now it's almost an addiction to the idea of being embarrassed. So then that way you can
Oof,
power your addiction to other things.
that's
Mm.
right. Incredible stuff, man. You guys are right. You know, I talk you young people, you have a tough world. The whole world is right in your pocket, right? Right on your phone. The entire planet
Yeah.
can see what you've done, can hear about what you've done. And
Hmm.
if you've done something you feel shame about, man, you know, you're right. It's not just, you know, that maybe the block knows what you did and your friend's mom knows, but the whole planet knows. And,
Right.
you
Hmm.
know, and that, man, that's tough. That's a lot of pressure. It's a
Yeah.
lot of
It
pressure.
puts more of the identity that one person has been cultivating is kind of diminished.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And, we as people like connecting with one another. We like being seen. We like being heard. And we live in a society where we don't even try to promote of that. And if we
Yeah.
do, we're not good at it. And that leads into us trying to feel like we should belong somewhere
Mhm.
else, right? If it's coming from broken homes, if it's just because the people that were around, external factors, right? Things that will make me feel confident on the outside rather than the inside.
Yeah.
People try to do certain things just because they want to feel like they belong somewhere,
Absolutely.
right? If it's
Absolutely.
being addicted to certain behaviors, right? I think that people do it to connect with one another, right? Studies show that when with kids, right, the reason why they play fight a lot and they like kind of hit each other in a way in a playful manner is because that's the sense of connecting with one another.
Okay. Yep.
And it's kind of like just that touch of
Yeah. I was
someone
going to say
else,
the
right?
physical aspect of it. Yeah.
Exactly. But with kids, they don't really see it that way, right? They're kind of just, oh, we're just playing.
Yeah.
But obviously, we have to tell them not because that could lead into something that is worse,
Right.
right? Because of society that we live in. Um,
Hmm.
and I think, what do you think when it comes to recovery, right?
Uh,
And getting rid of bad behaviors? Do you think that there's a specific time frame, or do you think that it's different depending on the person?
it's definitely it's definitely individual, right? It depends on the person. It's unique to everybody. Um, you know, some people like they so in addiction they talk about the yets a lot, like, oh, I haven't gotten a DUI yet, or I haven't overdosed yet, you know. So like some people define how bad their addiction is and how motivated they're gonna be to stop based on their yets. And then some people are like, you know, I drank too much and I embarrassed my mom when we were out to dinner, and I've never done that before, but that's it. I'm not drinking anymore. You know what I mean? And so some people, for whatever reason, it can happen immediately, and then some people, it can take a lot more. You
Right.
know?
And that's good to hear. And I want everybody that's listening to really understand that, because I think, especially with social media, we do a lot of comparing,
Yeah,
and we
for
could,
sure.
yeah, and it's kind of like, oh, this person, got X, Y, and Z, and I'm still here
Yeah,
dealing with certain things, right?
yeah,
And that's perfectly okay, though.
absolutely.
That's the first step, actually, knowing that you're still there.
Acceptance.
Exactly. It's where, okay, you're there. Now what?
Yeah,
You got to ask yourself, what is this going to
Mm-hmm.
do for you? What are you doing right now that you don't feel that makes you happy, right? I think what happens is that we look for so much instant gratification out of everything that we do.
yeah.
We don't realize about the outcome that it does for us based on behavior,
Agreed.
actions that we take, people that we surround ourselves with. And then we wonder why we are in certain detrimental places, right? We wonder why we don't feel good, right? Energy is another thing. And whatever you do with your energy, with the people, with the things that you do, is really going to impact on how you feel for yourself, right? That's what builds confidence, right? Who says that we are born with confidence, right? We have to build and cultivate our confidence in things that actually makes us feel whole, right?
Absolutely.
You can do one
Absolutely.
thing and I can do another, and they're both totally different, and it can still make one person feel confident. They don't have to be necessarily the same thing. People are just an example based on what they do that can be maybe a suggestion for.
Suggestions are definitely a good thing. That sort of goes back to like when I first meet people. You know, I really try hard not to come in with an agenda before I every morning. Our office, our team, we do rounds and we go over the people that the hospital has asked for us to go see, and we discuss. You know, maybe we have doctors in the room, we have psychologists, psychiatrists, recovery coach. So we have even students, so that we have all different types of input. So when we go to meet someone, we have a sense of not necessarily who they are, but we can get an idea of what they might have been going through. Um, and but I also try to be careful with that. So I try to go in without some sort of preconceived idea of how they got to where they are. Because what's most important is why, and you can't know that from a piece of paper.
Right.
You know?
I,
So
and
yeah.
that's like the second time you mentioned why, and I like to break this down too. One thing I heard was, when you hear why, you want to say who hurt you when you
Oh
break it
wow.
down.
Yeah.
So when you
Mm.
ask, when you have, right, the poetry snap,
There you go, man.
because when you ask that why, you're trying to ask, like, what is it hurting you that is making you do this,
That's man. You guys are awesome.
No way.
Thank you,
You're
thank you.
awesome. We're
No,
all
yeah, you're
awesome.
awesome. We're awesome together. We're awesome with togetherness.
Togetherness.
Yes.
But I think that's important, right? That's the first thing. It's about reflecting, and
Yeah.
reflection is the biggest thing. It's able to look at yourself and see yourself for where you are, right?
Yeah.
And it be like, okay, this is where I'm at. It might not be the best thing, but now that I see what's wrong, I
Yeah.
know what I could do to make it right.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
can't you cannot ever acknowledge the wrong and then find what's right if you don't know what's wrong. Like, how can we do that?
Absolutely.
That's so important. I hope everybody, this is a very awesome episode, because this is bringing about the awareness about the procedure, the structure, the understanding about addiction, right?
Yeah,
And about
yeah.
addiction shouldn't just be looked at as one thing, right? It should be
No.
Mm-hmm.
broadened to understand that it's just a feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling makes us do certain habits that could be detrimental to our own health and our mental health. I think when we hear addiction, we be like, oh, he has an addiction problem. And it's like, well, maybe he has problems
Yeah.
that leads him into being addicted to something that then leads into having an addiction problem.
And it's a cycle. That's why I say a lot of times addiction is a symptom,
Right.
right? It's a problem, but it's not the problem
There
that's
you go.
causing the cycle. Right.
Exactly.
Yes. And
Well
I
said.
wanna know as far as, because I know you mentioned that you're also doing some form of recovery for yourself. What would you say is some of the habits that you've cultivated for yourself that has made you more in content with your lifestyle?
For me, not being lazy is a big one for me, and I know that might sound simple, but like I I have to be intentional with my motivation, right? Sometimes I'll get into pockets where like I just want things to be done. You know, I don't want to put in the energy. I don't want to put in the work. So for me with recovery, I have to be very deliberate and I have to be very intentional. And so some of the habits that I've put into place are more like mental habits. Like I hear in my mind, I'm 44, right? So for 44 years, I've been hearing my brain say, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. I don't want to put in the work. I don't want to. I don't want to. And I have to hear my brain and I have to say sometimes out loud, but you're going to go do it. Like,
Right.
because, you know, we know what happens if you don't. So for me, one of the habits I put into place is intentionally listening to myself and then deliberately acting. You know, there are some things, some suggestions. When I got into recovery, I was 20, so there were some suggestions at that time. People like a big one in AA is they'll say put your shoes under your bed, right, far enough that you have to get on your knees to get them in the morning. So that every morning you're already down there on your knees. Maybe you could pray for some help, you know, and start having a conversation with a higher power. So those are little habits, right? Putting your
I
shoes on.
love that.
Right. Just little things to get you to start putting in positive practices to start helping you with acceptance, self-acceptance, and acceptance of everything around you.
I like that. Yeah, it's almost like cueing yourself.
Cueing yourself. That's a great way to put it, man. That's a great way to put it. You know, it was another one that was big for me was I read it in a book. Actually, the guy's name was Noah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you write it?
No. But he wrote about this practice that he put in place. He got it from somewhere too, where he put a picture of himself as a baby, like in his mirror, right? And so every day he would talk to that baby until he felt that baby understood that he was going to be okay. And then after that, he put himself as a 5-year-old. And he talked until all that was left was him looking directly at himself, his own reflection, and saying, I love you and you're going to be okay. And that, I think he did it over the course of a year or 2 years. That's a long practice, and that's a great one, man.
No, you know? I think even though you couldn't answer it before, I think that answers my question from earlier about what's one of the most unorthodox practices. Because I wouldn't even have thought of that. Like just a picture, and it's like that's physically and visually putting it in front of you when you got to protect your inner child, that child that started, you know, on this earth. And how, like, you know, at the end of the day, keeping our humor, being able to take things lightly, understanding that everything's going to be okay, regardless of how bad things can get, you know, as long as we understand that there's a higher power above us, has us a part of their plan. And I think like that's just a great way of saying, like, you know, I still matter and I just need to get to the root of who I am. So let me start from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that's great. I see. Look at that. You're great. You know, I think it's like, you know, putting the example, and especially like him changing it like over then when he was 5 years old. It's like he's cultivating his own younger self and having himself grow. right? And then he then sees himself like, okay, now here I am. So he is kind of like starting from the beginning of his timeline and talking to himself and like, hey, it's okay if this happened, et cetera, and then finally see himself there and be like, here I am. And I think that could be a really good practice too. Like looking yourself in the mirror is so big, because myself, I do that. I do it almost every day. I literally look at myself in the mirror and just look at myself for a little bit. Just admire myself and tell myself I'm handsome, tell myself I'm confident, tell myself I'm funny. Sometimes I talk to myself and be like, yeah, you had a good day today or whatever. And I make myself laugh, or sometimes I be very dramatic with how funny I am, right? I'll be like over the top. I'm like, all right, let me stop. So it's kind of like that, right? Having that relationship with yourself is so it's so important. And I think when we are feeling the need of something else to make us fulfilled, it's kind of like we're not seeing that can happen within ourselves first. We can't be happy with someone else if we can't be happy with ourselves first, right? Absolutely. It's the same thing with loving someone. I can't love someone else if I can't love myself first. It comes from myself first.
1,000%, and that's one of those pitfalls that many of us fall into. Like, and then finding that you're in an unhealthy relationship because you're not in a healthy one with yourself. It's a great point,
right? And one of the things I wrote down was kind of the way that I talk to myself is also the same way I allow others to talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I allow myself to talk to myself a certain way, that means that I'm not really going to see it coming when something unhealthy is coming to me if I'm unhealthy to myself.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. Yeah. I forget where I heard it, but right. Like, would you ever talk to the person you love the way you talk to yourself? You know what I mean? When you're in a negative space, like,
right.
I would never say to my partner, you know, the things that I say to myself. You know, I would never do that to her. I don't think that about her, you know? And you're right, to get to a place where I don't think that about myself is huge. That's self-discovery, as you put it. Being on a journey of discovery.
Right. And it really sounds like the foundational piece for anybody being healthy, successful, just overall live a better, healthier lifestyle is just that self-discovery, right? Addiction, we understand there's a hindrance in finding that self-discovery. So that's why we have to address it in certain ways and bring it to acknowledgement. Hopefully they do see it. It takes process for everyone else, but it's the matter of like having that hope and faith that they do.
That's a big one.
And knowing that there's external factors, right? It's not just one thing. It's so many other things, and it's taking your time understanding where it's coming from, and hopefully that they admit it themselves, because you can see it, but if that person themselves can't see it, then it doesn't hold any value.
Right. And exactly. And it can be daunting if you look at everything. I think, and again, I'm not representing AA or any 12-step program. And I just quickly, I make that a point very quickly when I meet people at the hospital. A lot of people have problems with those programs. So that's not where I'm coming from. However, I also say there's a lot of good information. And one of AA's most like recognizable phrases is just one day at a time, right? Or 1 minute at a time, one breath at a time, right? You don't have to fix everything now, one day at a time. And that I've fallen back on that a lot when I felt overwhelmed, and I truly believe it saved my life.
I love that. Yeah, we be saying that one step at a time.
One step at a time.
One day at a time, one step at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that me and Tyler like doing for the wrap up of our episodes, and is when we ask 4 questions.
Sure.
And they're called Rally for Cry. And I'll start with first 2, and then Tyler, you could do the last 2.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Bet. So my first question is, what is the best advice you ever received?
I think it was the Dalai Lama, and he didn't say it to me, but you can look the whole world around and find no one more deserving of love than yourself. You know?
Hold on. Whew. It's getting hot in here. Hold on.
I felt the love right there. Oh man, I love that one.
Right.
Pun intended.
So like, if you maybe that might not be advice, but if you flip it into advice, right?
That's great advice.
Right.
It's all perspective, right?
It's all perspective.
Right. Okay. That my second question is, what is the worst advice you ever received?
Be better.
That is a bad advice. Like, be better. What do you mean by that? Like, maybe I'm trying.
Yeah, just be better. Yeah, I for someone who has had confidence issues or shame issues, being told be better is kind of like saying like you're not trying hard enough, or the problem is you. Just be better. It's like, well,
Yeah, it's like microaggressive.
Macro aggressive. So yeah, I think be better maybe.
Okay, I love that.
Not good ones.
Keep it
Tyler,
simple.
what you got?
That's all I'm hearing. Keep it simple,
There you
because
go.
if it
Keep
gets
it
too
simple.
complex,
Right.
So all right, Noah. So I'm gonna hit you with another two. Get ready.
Yes, please.
Simple. So if you had the opportunity to tell your younger self something that about today, what would you say?
May I just ask clarification? Do you mean about the today, like the way things are, or about like how to? I'll keep it simple.
Keep it simple. See,
There you go. If I were to tell my younger self something, calm down. Calm down, Noah. It's okay. Everything's okay. That's what I would. You're going to be okay.
I love that. And I think that's something that, like, as kids, we're rushing with excitement towards everything. So that makes perfect sense, because, like, I mean, calm down. Not a lot of people like hearing that phrase. However, just to slow down. So I think that's a great answer.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, right.
Slow down. And lastly,
take it easy.
take it easy. Right, exactly. So last one, if there was a rule that you could make that you would want everybody to follow by, what would it be?
Truly to when it comes to everybody, including yourself, at least try to lead with love, lead with compassion, lead with understanding. Start there. If you end up somewhere else, that's fine, but lead with love.
You see, we need a little bit of love everywhere. And if not love, then maybe some understanding. And if not understanding, maybe a little bit of peace. Yes.
Peace is a lovely thing.
Yes, right. See, it all comes around. We need it all.
I think that's the quote for this episode. Peace is a lovely thing.
There you go.
You know what? I might work something up with that. Oh man, yes, everybody. Noah, Witt, thank you so much. Yes,
you guys. You guys are incredible. I joke with some of the students we have that in 50 years they're going to be my boss. But you guys, man, just your journeys are beautiful. I can't wait to know where you guys are headed, because it's positive. Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Oh man,
thank you. Noah.
You said leave with love. I feel you led that with love. How about that?
I feel it.
Yeah.
That means a lot too. Me and Tyler's been doing this for some time, and mental health is big and important. So someone like yourself saying that, it just means a lot. And yeah, we really do appreciate that, and appreciate you being here too and giving your insight and your experiences. And honestly, we learned a lot today too. So
that's great. I did too.
Yes. I hope everybody that was listening learned as well. Please leave if you enjoyed this episode, also leave us a review. Is there something that we didn't talk about enough, or something that we should talk about more? Make sure that you follow us on the Rally Cries on Instagram, and follow us on your podcast platform. Until next time, we love you guys, and make sure you take one step at a time.
One day at a time.
Yes.
Love y'all.
All right, everybody. Peace.